9to5Mac has another update for us on how Apple is planning on introducing wireless charging to the iPads, something no one asked for, but because they can't turn iPadOS into anything useful, they have to take the hardware in weird directions. But in today's video, I'm telling you why I don't get it. Let's begin. So just focusing on the news itself, essentially within testing, Apple tried to do glass-backed iPads, and apparently they were too worried about it breaking or shattering. You know, the iPad became even more fragile than it already was, so instead of having a whole glass back, they figured just making the Apple logo made of glass and actually bigger than the current Apple-sized logo would actually allow for them to support MagSafe wireless charging through the logo. That way the rest of the chassis can remain as aluminum? Right, first of all, I thought Apple inherently had an issue with the Apple logo being used for anything functional that the end user actually uses it for. Remember when everyone was like, they should incorporate the Flash or Touch ID into the Apple logo? And of course, Apple could never do that. That's impossible. Why not throw LiDAR on the logo? Because it's so pristine, right? It's so iconic. It can't be used for anything functional because in itself, the logo is functional because it lets everyone know, hey, you have an iPhone. But the weirdest part about this to me is I just don't understand how the regular sized MagSafe puck is supposed to be useful when charging an iPad, particularly when nearly all iPads, I'm sure the percentage is probably like 95 to 98% of all iPads are used with a smart cover or a smart folio case of some kind, especially with how Apple is, of course, talking about wireless charging in iPad Pros. Those are always advertised in Magic Keyboard cases. Those have metal attachments that magnetically adhere to the iPad, and now you have this keyboard case with a trackpad that you type with, and with a MagSafe puck, you're supposed to put that where exactly? And how is this easier than just plugging in a USB-C cable? Because my whole love of MagSafe wireless charging, which I'm still a big fan of wireless, so I know probably feels weird that the Apple sheep, who's all into the portless future and all that, is ranting about how wireless charging on iPads doesn't make much sense, but I'm just saying this current implementation that 9to5Mac is talking about with wireless charging makes no sense to me, because it would imply that either every time I charge my iPad, I take it out of the smart cover, I take it out of the keyboard case, just so that I could drop it on this tiny little puck and try to align it just right, even though, like, the reason it makes sense on iPhones and stuff is because iPhones are, of course, smaller, so at the end of the day, you take the phone out of your pocket and you drop it on that little puck and it starts charging. You're not really going to be doing that with iPads because of all the accessories that everybody already has with them, so pulling them out of their cases and covers that you put to the side, and it's going to be much harder to align that MagSafe puck unless, God forbid, they're actually talking about like making a giant MagSafe puck where, you know, there's like the even bigger circle that you drop your whole iPad on and then it charges either face down or face up. That just sounds so awkward and tacky. I mean, I'm happy about the part of the report that says this version of MagSafe would support faster wireless charging. Maybe with the iPhone 14 we can get some 30-watt MagSafe support. That would be kind of cool, but the only other alternative I could imagine is if Apple is actually planning on, once again, redesigning the Magic Keyboard case or redesigning all of the iPad Pro Smart Folio covers to accommodate MagSafe pass-through charging, because I believe with the current implementation of the smart covers, the covers are either too thick or accommodate for too much metal for MagSafe to actually be able to charge through the back and reach where the Apple logo would be. So now you're telling me you're gonna try to sell people on $800 to $1,000 iPad Pros and they all need to buy new keyboard cases again? Another $300 to $350 just so that you can slap this little puck on the like upward portion of the keyboard case somewhere? It just makes so little sense to me. I just don't get it. Like, how is this supposed to be easier or practical? Honestly, it would make more sense for them to just throw on MagSafe 3 from the MacBook Pro. Just put that on the side of the iPad if you're so insistent that you gotta use magnets in your charging method somehow. I just think the form factor of wireless charging doesn't make as much sense on iPads as it does iPhones and Apple Watches. If anything, if you want to design a big MagSafe puck, you know, air power, if you will, to charge up your laptop, it would probably make more sense on MacBooks because they have a big base with the keyboard and trackpad that you could, you know, set the MacBook on top of, whereas iPads, they're kind of mounted on top of their keyboards, so how you would slip MagSafe on the center of that to line up with the logo, or telling people to take the iPad out of its case or cover every time time you want to use MagSafe charging just doesn't seem practical to me, and it's bothering me how little people are actually talking about this. Every time there's a report, it's like, oh yeah, we have wireless charging AirPods, we have wireless charging Apple Watches and phones, so why not, yeah, just throw it on the iPad as well. No. Think about it. Doesn't work. I don't get it. Like, this is one of those situations where I just think USB-C charging is more logical. It's probably easier because the main reason I like wireless is because it just requires one hand. I can drop my phone on the charger, it starts charging. If I have to pull the iPad out of its case or cover, that's already taking more time, and I'm gonna be using two hands anyway to plug in a USB-C cable, so people aren't gonna be dropping iPad Pros on MagSafe chargers with one hand because iPad Pros are big. So if anything, it would start to even make a tad more sense if they were like the iPad mini is getting wireless charging. That's not even what they're saying here. They're saying it's restricted to just the bigger sized iPad Pros. So if you want the Apple sheep theory at the end of the day, I'm gonna have to go ahead and pull the prototype card and say that yes, Apple is testing all kinds of weird wireless charging tech with the new iPad Pros, but I think overall they will realize that it's not really practical. This might be just some little intern project we're reading about, and it won't really see the light of day. We're not actually going to see an iPad Pro that has this feature. Again, the only way I could see Apple incorporating wireless or reverse wireless charging on the iPad probably doesn't align with the Apple logo MagSafe puck rumor. But I think it would be because they're looking for a replacement to the smart connector for some reason. I think the smart connector is actually pretty practical and reasonable, but maybe for whatever reason, if they want to ditch the smart connector, you could have a glass-backed iPad that would power the keyboard case inductively instead of through those pins, and then if you plug in a USB-C cable to the keyboard case, that charges the iPad inductively, and that can allow them to, I don't know, save the $2 it takes to include those little pins on the back of the iPad, or maybe a more glass-backed design can look a tad more premium. I've actually noticed glass-backed phones being more rigid and structural than aluminum-backed, so I thought a glass back might be Apple's approach of making the iPad Pro thinner and more sturdy. That doesn't align with what 9to5Mac is reporting. They're claiming that the glass back is not looking too good, so I'm predicting we will get new iPad Pros later this year, but they will not have wireless charging of any kind. Probably your best bet is just throwing MagSafe 3 on the side of the iPad, and now your full-speed Thunderbolt port is available for accessories while you're charging it through MagSafe. Not a half bad idea the more I'm thinking about it. But what do you guys think Apple should do with next generation iPad Pros? How would you implement wireless charging? Would you turn the back of the iPad into your personal MagSafe Duo where you can plug it in via USB-C, charge your phone, your watch, and your AirPods all on the back? Also not a terrible idea. I could see some people doing that. Feel free to let me know down in the comments below. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you all in the next one.